In the heart of a bustling city that never seemed to find a moment of silence, there lived a young artist who felt as though their own voice was perpetually trapped behind a heavy, invisible curtain. Every time they stepped into a crowded room or stood before a sea of expectant faces in a classroom, the words would tangle in their throat, turning into nothing more than a shallow, hurried breath. Every time they stepped into a crowded room or stood before a sea of expectant faces in a classroom, words would tangle in their throat, turning into nothing more than a shallow, hurried breath. This silence was not a choice, but a stifling armor they wore to protect themselves from the overwhelming noise of the outside world, which felt far too jagged and loud for their sensitive spirit. To cope with this weight, the artist turned to their sketchbook, treating the pristine, white notebook pages as a sanctuary where they could finally be brave without ever having to speak a single syllable aloud. They filled these pages with sprawling, surreal landscapes, forests where the trees grew like giant, vibrant paintbrushes, and rivers that flowed in ribbons of liquid sapphire, each stroke serving as a quiet rebellion. For the artist, each line drawn was a sentence they couldn't say, and every shade of color added was an emotion they couldn't voice, turning their notebook into a vibrant diary of their internal life. The world they created was soft, deliberate, and entirely their own, a place where they were the architect of peace rather than a bystander to the chaos of the noisy, demanding city surrounding them. One afternoon, while sitting in the quiet corner of a local library, the artist left their sketchbook open on a wooden table for only a moment to go and retrieve a book from a distant shelf. Upon returning, they discovered a faint, charcoal-drawn bird perched carefully on the branch of one of their painted trees, a delicate addition that had not been there just moments before. This unexpected mark felt like a heartbeat against the paper, a silent invitation from someone else who seemed to understand that the most profound things often defy the limitations of human speech. The artists stared at the bird, their pulse quickening with a mix of surprise and a strange, budding curiosity, wondering who in this vast city possessed a hand so gentle and an eye so observant. Emboldened by this mysterious visitor, the artist began to leave small, intentional spaces in their work, not as empty gaps, but as deliberate pauses where they invited the other person to respond. Day after day, they returned to the library, leaving behind little puzzles, the door left slightly ajar in a painting, or a path that stopped at the edge of a cliff, waiting to see how the other would react. The response was always there the next day, a silhouette of a traveler appearing at the door, or a bridge appearing across the cliff, proving that a silent, shared language was rapidly forming between them. Their collaborative art grew more complex, evolving from simple sketches into a shared world where they could safely explore the fears and joys they were both too terrified to articulate in reality. As they worked, the artist realized that they were not just painting a story. They were painting a path back to themselves, slowly learning that they didn't need to shout to be heard by the world. The once frightening classroom began to feel less like a stage where they had to perform, and more like a space where they could simply exist, comforted by the secret, painted world waiting for them. The bond formed through the pages was stronger than any conversation they might have had, because it was built on pure observation, deep empathy, and the shared beauty of their combined imagination. They finally arranged to meet, not to talk, but to sit side by side in the soft afternoon sun. Their sketchbooks laid open between them like a bridge spanning the gap of their former loneliness. The final pages of the journey were filled with a collaborative masterpiece, a sunrise over a city that was finally silent, peaceful, and perfectly painted, marking the end of their solitary struggle. The artist eventually realized that courage is not always found in the loudness of one's voice, but in the willingness to open one's world to another. By choosing to communicate through the beauty of their art, they transformed their deepest fear into their greatest connection. They discovered that while words may often fail us, the stories we paint in the quiet corners of our lives have the power to change everything. If this story resonated with you and you enjoyed watching this world come to life, please subscribe to the Paint a Story channel for more artistic tales and creative journeys. Don't forget to hit the like button if you found a piece of yourself in this story, and leave a comment below sharing what you would draw if you had a magical sketchbook of your own. Thank you for being a part of this community. Your support means the world to us as we continue to paint, grow, and tell stories together.